The comments and opinions of Talk of the Heartland with Mac McKoy are not necessarily the opinions of Walnut Media USA, management, station manager Janelle Reeves, any particular denomination or religion, the mailman, the church lady, or anyone else of sound mind and body. Now, here's the Talk of the Heartland with Mac McKoy on KCRO, the Heartland's Christian voice.
All right, good afternoon. It's the second day of November in the Lord's year 2022. I'm Mac McKoy, and this is the Talk of the Heartland on the Heartland's Christian voice here on AM 660, FM 106.7 in Lincoln, and all around the world at KCRO.com. We've been telling you that there are all new programs that are running between 5 and 6 every afternoon. And we're looking forward to our next new program, and it's going to start next Tuesday, and we're going to tease it, meaning I don't have the details on it yet, but I know it's another good show, and it's all local. And that's the thing that makes, if I could just boast for a second, I'm very proud of this radio station for where it's come in the last year. And we are not your grandmother's Christian radio station anymore. Number one, we have more local programming than any other talk station in the city. And I'm not just including Christian programming. I'm including all talk programming. And they are all regular people just like me, just like my guest today, Gary Hutchens from Sunny Slope. There aren't any big, fancy, big-name pastors, and we've got a few here in town. But these are just folks that have a church, maybe 200, 300, 400 people, and they want to get the word out, and so we're very happy to have them here. Tonight, we're going to have David Newson and his radio program, Destiny. He's about 6 weeks into that program, so we invite you to take the time to listen to David. Tomorrow, it's a very special show. Van Deeb and The Journey will have the gentleman who's running for Congress, and that would be Mr. Bacon. And I haven't heard the show, but I know Van Deed runs a good shop over there, so it should be a good show, and we're looking forward to hearing that. All right, my special guest today is Gary Hutchens of Sunny Slope. That's just a little north of 108th and Maple. Sunday school at 9:30, church at 10:30, and then another Sunday school Sunday night, or just a service?
No, it's really kind of a worship/Bible study on Sunday nights at 6 o'clock.
Okay. And then you also have the same kind of Bible study at 6:30 on Wednesday.
All kinds of Bible classes Wednesday night, yes.
Well, and that's what your church, that's what, how do I say this? That must have been your vision for this church, because that's what it's become, and you've been here 20 years?
Almost 22, but that's basically that's been our direction in the Churches of Christ pretty much all along.
Yeah, and he got really blessed when his IT guy bought his URL 150 years ago, and he's got churchofchrist.com. And if you ever need a new hip or something, you don't have the money to pay for it, let me know. I'd like to have that URL.
You don't know how many people have approached us and asked us to just give it to them. And I'd say, no, thanks.
Do you know what it's worth on the open market?
No, I don't.
You want me to tell you?
I have no idea.
Would you want me to tell you? Because
Sure.
I buy URLs.
Okay.
That's
yeah.
one of the things I collect. It's probably worth $25,000.
Oh, my. Well,
Seriously.
Yeah, we try to tie it up for years and years ahead, so that because we want to, we consider it a kind of a trust,
Yeah.
and we want to make sure that it's used to teach the truth and to stay true to God.
Now, because of that URL, which is a lookup address on the internet, do you get a lot of traffic that are from out of state and sometimes even out of the country?
All over the world, literally.
Yeah. Do you ever buy any of the positions you could buy on Google that if somebody puts in Church of Christ, you'll come up first? You can do that, you know.
We've done a little bit of that kind of thing, I believe, in the past.
When you go to Google, and I'm not an expert, but it is something that this company that I am very happy to work with, we have a digital department run by Addie Combs, and she is really good. And the only reason I know some of this stuff is we actually offer that for our clients.
Yeah.
So when you go to Google and you put something in, you'll see this little thing in the upper left-hand corner that says ad sponsor. And then the next one, ad sponsor. You want to get to where it doesn't say ad sponsor.
Okay.
Because those are the people that are really getting good traffic, but they're not paying for it. So there's your 20 cents lesson on digital today.
I appreciate that.
All right, so what I want to talk to Gary about today, and I always love having Gary in, I want to talk about, and hang on to your drawers here because we're not going to get crazy. But I want to talk about how crazy this world is right now. And we're not a political show, and I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to point fingers. But the fact of the matter is, it seems to me, as it does to other people I know, that it seems like Jesus may be coming back soon. But I think my parents said that, and then my grandparents said that, and my great-grandparents. No, it hasn't been as bad as it is now. But each of those generations went through time of World War I, World War II. You mentioned the Revolutionary War, the Civil War. And during that period, everybody goes, oh, Jesus has got to be coming back. This is just horrible. All the signs in the Bible, you know, fire and flame and viruses and sicknesses. And it just seems that we're there where we don't think we've ever been before. The question is, have we?
Well, you know, I think, again, I've heard and read those kinds of statements my entire life, just about, where you'd have older folks, you know, say, boy, I've never seen it like this before. You know, I don't know what the world's coming to. I don't know how long we can go on. And the next generation, just as you indicated, next generation, you get the older folks, they say the same thing. But we are going through things right now that I've never seen in my life, and I've been here for a while. You know? I mean, I've lived through, and so have you, lived through the Cold War, lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy's assassination, you know, Vietnam.
A lot of people are still alive for Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. I was alive. I was too little to really know what was going on during the Korean War, but I had a brother who served in the Korean War in active duty, in fact, in combat. You know, we saw the rise and the fall of Russia as one of the mightiest nations in the world under communism, and you know, all of that happened. Now, a whole lot of people living now, they don't understand communism because they weren't alive during that time.
Well, and a lot of people also who are alive now don't believe that what happened to Russia can happen to us.
Absolutely.
What happened to Korea? There was once no South and North.
That's
it was
correct.
Just Korea.
And Vietnam, too.
Yeah, my father served in the Korean War and was over in Korea. And he can remember when Korea was just a really nice country, and we'd have travelers that would go there. And now it's one of the most militarized, unmilitarized zones in the world, and the Vietnam. But it's not just war.
No.
For me, and I'm not very smart when it comes to CDC and stuff like this. But I actually have a high school friend that I graduated with, I think I've told you this before, that went on and get 2 PhDs, one in viruses and one in infections. Mm-hmm. And he works for the CDC. And you're just going to have to trust me because I can't give up his name. But this is bizarre. And I mean, we're going all the way back to beginning of 19. So we're all of 19, all of 20, all of 21, and now almost all of 22. COVID has been around for almost 4 years, and yet it has changed and what do they call it? Recycled and matured, and this variant and that variant. And it seems like when we're going into the fall right now in the winter, it's kind of coming back, a lot of that stuff.
Some new variants, subvariants are popping up now, you know, so, yeah, it's strange.
Well,
Now, see, that's one of the things that you and I have never lived through. Now, not to this degree. Of course, we had the swine flu, going back in around 2012 or so, and we've had different epidemics on a smaller scale, but this is a pandemic that like we've never seen. But then, of course, you go back to 1919 or so, and then you had the Spanish flu, and it was probably equally, if not more, virulent and had more effects, perhaps, than what we've already seen with this.
Did you just make that word up, virulent?
No.
That's a real word?
It's a real word,
All right, well, good job out of you. That's a big word. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about this, and it sure is you I'd like to hear giving us your opinion. You can email me at Mac, M-A-C, like macaroni, at kcro.com. I've got my email up the whole time. I will not read your name or anything about you if that's what you say in the email. But if you've got any thoughts on this, and again, we're not trying to get political here, we're trying to get biblical. What does the Bible really say about end times? And has my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents and all those, have they all lived through these days in which they said, Jesus is coming back soon? Gary Hutchens is my guest. He's with Sunny Slope Church of Christ, a little bit north of 108th and Maple. 9:30 is Bible study on Sunday morning. Then 10:30 is the service. And then at 6 o'clock that night, kind of an in-between Bible service and Bible study and worship service. And then Wednesdays at 6:30, also a Bible study.
Yep.
And anybody can attend any of those at any time.
That's right.
And it is churchofchrist.com. So when you go there, it is 100% Gary's church's website. It's not a place to take you to a landing where then you separate out to find this Church of Christ and that Church of Christ. That's the email. And everything they have at that church, you give away for free. And I honor you for that. Whenever I listen to you, I know I'm going to hear this. And if you'd like a copy of this Bible study, it's yours available free at Sunny at churchofchrist.com. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about what the Bible says about the end days. And are we close? Or is Jesus just tickling us again? Hey, Mac, I might be coming. You better be a good boy. That's coming up today on AM 660, FM 106.7, and all around the world at kcro.com.
Do you need a little good news in your life? Tune in to Spotlight Good News Omaha on KCRO 3 times daily, weekdays at 5:30 a.m., 9:45 a.m., and 10:15 p.m. with your host, Tim Janisewski on KCRO, the Heartland's Christian voice.
We are not connected with nor endorsed by the U.S. government or the federal Medicare program. This is a solicitation of insurance. Contact us for details.
You owe it to yourself to understand your Medicare supplement options. Whether you're new to Medicare or just want to compare rates, we urge you to visit Physicians Life Insurance Company at coveragereview.com, because finding better coverage at a better price can save you time and money. Visit coveragereview.com. That's coveragereview.com.
Hi, it's Mac from Talk of the Heartland, and you know in this day and age you can pick up KCRO just about anywhere you want. We have a digital app that goes on all smartphones, Alexa or Google or any of the smart speakers, or anywhere around the world at kcro.com. And no matter where you are when you're listening, at home, at work, or in the car, remember to write it down. We are AM 660 and 106.7 KCRO. Thanks for listening to the Talk of the Heartland.
This is Steve Arterburn from New Life Live. Do you have any character-building people in your life? That's what I call the people that make your life difficult. We hate the fact that they're even in our lives, but without them, we'd never come close to what God wants for us. Tune in at 1 o'clock Monday through Friday as we answer questions on how to deal with some of the character-building people in your life.
100 years KCRO.
Good afternoon. afternoon. It is the second day of November in the Lord's year 2022. I'm Mac McKoy, and welcome to the Talk of the Heartland here on AM 660 and FM 106.7 and all around the world at KCRO.com. Gary Hutchens is my guest from Sunny Slope, and you also have a program on this station 4 or 5 times a day. Is that right?
5 times. Yep.
Okay, I was kind of guessing. I have a Bible study that starts at 5:45 on Friday mornings. Now, that's not fair. Obviously, Jesus doesn't like to sleep late. But I always get to hear your program because I think it starts at 5:30 early in the morning, and it's very good. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And it's www.churchofchrist.com, and everything you find there is absolutely yours at no cost. Bible studies, sermons, transcripts, everything. So today we're talking a little bit about, at least for a while, we're going to talk a little bit about end times. And we're not going to get all goofy and spook you. In fact, Gary and I just talked a minute ago, maybe Revelation isn't the place we want to go to talk about this. When we want to know what the Bible says, you say go to, what'd you say, 24, Matthew?
Matthew chapter 24 is a good place, yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to let you read a little of that, if you would, and kind of give us an idea of what Jesus says about his second coming.
Well, let me start way into that chapter, and then I'll go back toward the beginning. But way back way along in the chapter, verse 36, Jesus said, "But of that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so also will be the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken, the other left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming."
Now, I always get confused. Who's getting left and who's being taken?
Well, if you look at 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, I believe it is, chapter 2, I believe it is, the saved are going to meet the Lord in the air first.
Okay.
You know, that's my understanding from that text, and then the unsaved are going to be judged. But
The ones left.
Correct. What Jesus is saying here is, and you've had people trying to predict when the Lord is coming, and to me that's a futile exercise, or as we could say, an exercise in futility, because Jesus said even he did not know at that time, but only the Father knows. And so you've had people, they have predicted such and such time. Of course, every one of them has been wrong.
Now, one of them was Campney. Did I get that right? There was a pastor like in the 80s, a national pastor, that predicted a date and time anyway.
The 1980s?
Yeah.
Oh, the late great planet Earth. That was
Hubbard.
That was his name. Hubbard. Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, that time went. He sold a lot of books, and the date he was nailing it down to an exact year. Well, of course, that year came and went. So you know what he did?
He recalculated.
He wrote another book.
Yeah. He figured he was
and that
late.
time came and passed also. But it goes back even to the 1800s. People were predicting, and of course, all of that went by the wayside. Some have said, the Jehovah's Witnesses said 1917, I think. Well, that came and went, and it didn't happen. And see, we don't know, and we cannot predict when the Lord says even he did not know. But only the Father.
Do you think he knows now?
I think he may know now.
Okay,
yeah.
I know that's
I think
a crazy
that's very
question.
possible, yeah. But, as bad, as you said, we were talking off the air, every generation people say, how could it be any worse? I've never seen it like this, never been like this. Well, go back to Genesis chapter 6 and verse 5. In the days of Noah, when God told Noah, I'm going to destroy mankind, I found you righteous. You and your family are going to survive. And it's going to be through you that mankind comes back, But verse 5 says, And it's talking about all of humanity. Every thought and intent of their heart was only evil continually. Now, that's difficult for me to even wrap my mind around.
Say that again, please. Just say it again.
Now, this is all of humanity. Everybody, in other words. Every thought and intent of their heart was only evil continually. Now, that means you're talking to somebody. And if their lips are moving, you might think, they're probably lying to me.
Okay.
And if I better be careful turning my back on them because they might mug me or kill me or something.
And that's the time that Noah lived in after the floods came.
No, before the flood.
And many people say, well, that compares to where we are now.
Well, maybe on a small scale, but I mean, okay, are you trying to be a good person? Am I trying to be a good person? Do we know people who are good people who are trying to live a righteous life? But there, everybody, with the exception of Noah and his family, were evil continually.
Yeah, they laughed at him. What are you building this big boat for? Because if I understand it right, there had never been rain.
I don't think there ever had been rain until that point. Yeah.
The moisture for the greenery and the plants and stuff actually came from under the earth and soaked up. But this was the first time they'd ever seen rain.
I think that's probably correct. Going back to Genesis chapter 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So the question is this. Do you think we're in the end times? And the other question I ask, and this probably isn't a nice question given what my first one was, and I'm going to direct this to Gary when we come back, not right now, but when we come back. Does it matter? Does it mean anything? I mean, I can remember before Jesus mugged me, and I'd think of Jesus coming back, and I didn't give it a second thought. It was just silly Christian nonsense. But then he comes along and he says, come here, Mac, you're mine. And I've spent the last 13 years trying to create a relationship with him. But I still don't know. This is not a rhetorical question, Pastor, but I don't know whether it makes a hill's bit of difference to any of us. We'll talk about that with Gary Hutchens from Sunny Slope. A block north of 108th and Maple, Sunday school at 9:30, church at 10:30, kind of a combined worship and Bible study, then Sunday nights at 5, and then in the middle of the week, that's tonight. Yeah, you've got that tonight.
6:30.
And what are you studying tonight?
Actually, we're doing a series of what I call heart troubles and talking about anger tonight.
Ooh. I thought you were going to talk about my pacemaker. All right, we're coming back. It's 28 minutes after the hour, and this is AM 660 and FM 106.7, and we are all around the world. Every moment of time you can listen to this Christian radio station, and one of the oldest in the country. 100 years old in 2022, and that's KCRO.com.
The ministries you listen to every day here on KCRO all have one thing in common. They're all working to bring souls to Christ. Many of the ministries that do such a fine job of sharing the word of the Lord never know the impact they have on their listeners' lives. So today, take a minute and let your favorite program know they are making a difference. If you need contact information for a specific program, you can call us here and we'd be glad to help. Thanks for listening, and God bless.
Still make you crazy.
Hello, this is Alan.
This is James.
This is David.
And this is Walter.
AJDW Conversation.
You can listen to AJDW Conversation every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. right here on AM 660 KCRO.
I wanted to quit for so long, but I didn't know where to start.
I was afraid of what people would think, but then I found the right support to start my recovery journey. 1 in 14 Americans reports experiencing a substance use disorder, a treatable medical condition. Treatment can take many forms, so there are a variety of options to explore and find the one that works best for you. Recovery from drug addiction is possible.
Paid for by the CDC, sponsored by Nebraska DHHS, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
You are invited to tune in every Sunday right here on AM 660 KCRO for the Covenant Church live broadcast at 11 a.m. Covenant Church is located at 150th and Blondo Street in Omaha. The mission of Covenant is to know Christ and to make Him known. For more information, go to covenantomaha.church. That's covenantomaha.church. Or visit in person and bring the family to the 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. service. Come find a place where you can belong. Come home to Covenant.
Now your forecast for KCRO. For Omaha, Council Bluffs, and Lincoln. Mainly clear skies tonight with lows around 59. South winds 15 to 20 miles per hour. Partly cloudy tomorrow. Slight chance for scattered showers. Highs level off around 74. Overcast tomorrow night. Scattered thunderstorms likely. Lows around 41. Chance for scattered thunderstorms Friday. Chance for mixed precipitation on Saturday. I'm weatherology meteorologist Paul Trombley on KCRO.
From one of the greatest presidents in America to one of the greatest radio stations in America. Happy 100th birthday, KCRO.
More and more Americans believe that loving God in their hearts is the ultimate value. I was pleased last year to proclaim 1983 the year of the Bible. But you know, a group called the ACLU severely criticized me for doing that. Well, I wear their indictment like a badge of honor. Last year, not only were Year of the Bible activities held in every state, but more than 25 states and 500 cities issued their own Year of the Bible proclamations. One school teacher, Mary Gibson in New York, raised $4,000 to buy Bibles for working people in downtown Manhattan. 1983 was the year more of us read the good book. Can we make a resolution here today that 1984 will be the year we put its great truths into action? My experience in this office I hold has only deepened a belief I've held for many years. Within the covers of that single book are all the answers to all the problems that face us today if we'd only read and believe. Let's begin at the beginning. God is the center of our lives. The human family stands at the center of society. And our greatest hope for the future is in the faces of our children. 7,000 Poles recently came to the christening of Maria Victoria Walesa, daughter of Danuta and Lech Walesa, to express their belief that solidarity of the family remains the foundation of freedom. God's most blessed gift to his family is the gift of life. He sent us the Prince of Peace as a babe in a manger. I've said that we must be cautious in claiming God is on our side. I think the real question we must answer is, are we on his side? I know what I'm about to say now is controversial, but I have to say it. This nation cannot continue turning a blind eye and a deaf ear to the taking of some 4,000 unborn children's lives every day.
100 years, KCRO.
Good afternoon. It's the second day of November in the Lord's year 2022. I'm Mac McKoy along with Gary Hutchens from Sunny Slope, and this is AM 660, FM 106.7 in Lincoln and all around the world at KCRO.com. Coming up at 5 o'clock this afternoon, it's David Newsom and his show Destiny. And then tomorrow, a special show, same time, 5 o'clock. The host is Van Deeb, and he'll have the gentleman who wants to be your congressman. And you see him on the television so often, I just want to reach out and say, hey, Mr. Bacon, how? Well, I don't know him. But anyway, Van Deeb did interview him, and it was a good interview, I heard. And so that's going to be tomorrow, Thursday, and it's almost done. Can you believe it? It's almost done. And I don't know if you've noticed, but we didn't accept a lot of political advertising on this station because it's my deal in politics, and Jesus just very rarely don't work out. In fact, I have had a friend of mine is a pastor for 25, 30 years, and he says that when you mix politics with religion, all you get is politics. And I think that's so very true. But given that, we are going to talk some time today, and we're going to spend some time with Gary Hutchens from Sunny Slope. And you're in Matthew 24.
Right.
And this is where you believe that the Lord reveals some of the worldly situations that might, I'm trying to be careful here, might give us a sign that the day of reckoning is coming.
Well, I think he's actually just warning us against trying to predict when that day is coming. He says in Matthew chapter 24, well, in verse 3, as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us when will these signs be, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" And so he answered and said, "Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and will deceive many." Okay, so is there going to come a day when we're going to start having false messiahs out there? People coming and saying, I'm the Messiah. Well, he says that's going to happen, and you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these signs must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
So how will you and I, excuse me, how will you and I be able to differentiate the false Messiah from the true one? Are there going to be any telltale signs?
We need to know the Bible.
And by the way, if you didn't see that, he just shook his finger at me, which I like.
You know, how does a bank or a place of business, how do they tell what is a counterfeit bill that's trying to be passed to them?
They look at a real one.
The machine is programmed to recognize only the true bill.
Yep.
And so it weeds out all the counterfeits. Well, we need to know the Bible, and then we'll be able to tell when somebody is spinning a yarn, so to speak. And Jesus said, in verse 42 of Matthew 24, "Watch therefore, for you do not know the hour when your Lord is coming." So when do we need to be ready? Today, right now, and every day, because he could come at any time.
Gary Hutchens is my guest today. He's with Sunny Slope Church of Christ, a couple blocks north of, or actually about a block north of Maple on 108th. Bible study every Sunday morning at 9:30, worship at 10:30, 6 o'clock that night, a combination worship and Bible study, and then on Wednesday at 6:30, which is tonight, and you're going to have a Bible study and a conversation about some scary stuff.
Anger. And Mac, that is one of the earmarks of what we're going through. We talked about how people say every generation, this has got to be the worst. I've never seen it like this, But you and I have both been around a good while. I have never seen the anger and the hatred that is just so open and apparent in our culture as I see it today. Just outright hatred toward people. And it's open, it's in your face, it's even violent in many cases. And the anger that is not quite to the point of hatred, but the anger leads to the hatred if it's not kept, kind of corralled. But I've never seen it like this. But it's still, we can't say, okay, the Lord's going to be here like next year. Now, here's something we need to keep in mind. When do we need to be ready to face the Lord?
Now. Right now.
And when would be the time for all of a sudden for us to have our time come to an end? When we die physically.
Right. So here's the question I've had before. And there's probably no right or wrong, but I want to ask you. Did the end time here? I believe that the end times started when Jesus was taken back to heaven.
Well, Revelation chapter 20 has an interesting text.
By the way, I just want you to know that Gary and I did not talk about what we were going to talk about. When he brings up these Bible verses, he brings them up from his memory. And that's one of the reasons why we have cameras. So that when you listen to Gary talk about these scriptures, first of all, you know they're not rehearsed. And B, he knew them off the top of his head. And that's what happens when you know the Bible. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All to God's glory. But Revelation chapter 20, and as we talked about off the air, you said, do you want to go to Revelation? I said, well, Revelation, is apocalyptic literature, very highly symbolic language.
Yep.
And you have to really understand the symbols and interpret them over and over and over again to really get the full message. But there's a section in Revelation chapter 20 that talks about when the devil's going to be released from his chains. Now, the only restriction, people talk about the devil being chained and all of that. The only restrictions that was put upon him when he was chained, going back in an earlier chapter of Revelation, was he could not deceive the nations anymore. Now, what had been happening until that point? He had actually led Rome, I believe we're to understand, in a war against the church, trying to destroy the church, or at least make Christians worship the emperor. And they said, no, not going to do that. And that's why they were thrown into the arena to have to face gladiators and face wild animals, be torn to pieces. But in Revelation chapter 20, it talks about he's going to be released for a time. And what does he do immediately? He starts gathering the enemies of God's people together, Gog and Magog. And what do? They surround the camp of the saints, which I think we can interpret as being the church.
Yeah.
But then God steps in because he's not going to let outside forces destroy the church. And he ends that, brings it to an end right away, But is there going to be a worldwide persecution against the church? I think that text indicates that that's probably going to happen. When is that going to happen?
What's happening now?
Yes.
It's happening now.
I can easily believe that we are in that period when the devil's been released and he's already gathering the forces to persecute the church again.
Can't that guy read? Doesn't he know? I'm serious, though. That would be like me betting on a football game that I already knew the outcome of, except I was betting against the winner.
Yeah, and the text goes on and talks about he'll be thrown into the lake of fire, too.
Well, as Gary so nicely brought up, to study Revelation is so far above my pay grade. Now, I did go through a class with a guy by the name of Pastor Tim, back in Des Moines, and he knew what a lot of that symbolism was, but he wasn't arrogant. Tim was not arrogant. Luke Tim is his name, but Luke would say, now there's a couple options of what this could be, and there's not 30, there's not 9, there's probably 2, and he taught us both, and so now when I go back and read Revelation, I have my notes from him. And I bet you're probably the same way. You can go so many different ways, but I agree with you. I think the end times have already started.
Now, how long will that last?
Well, I don't
See,
know.
we don't know.
Yeah.
We could be talking about, when could the Lord come? Today? Tomorrow?
Yeah.
1,000 years from now.
Yeah.